It's finally here, week one of the NFL season. We have regular season Seahawks football, George. Not preseason anymore, not training camp news. Regular season, week one against the Broncos again. A little deja vu from 2 years ago, but this time not against Russell Wilson and against a rookie quarterback. I'm excited, and we're finally here.
Yeah, I think this game counts, right? On our regular season record.
Oh, it does.
That's the best part of it. And the best part also, like last time we played the Broncos, we had a quarterback that I wouldn't say hated in Seattle, but now had some ill will with Russell Wilson because he left us. And now we got Bo Nix, an Oregon quarterback, and the Husky faithful hate Oregon. So kind of a somehow there's always connections between the Seahawks and Broncos, former division rivals too.
You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me as always is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
Yeah. Well, but there are some people that root for the Seahawks and the Ducks that are excited to watch.
Right, of course. Yeah, of course. There are some.
A little different than the Russell situation, but a interesting parallel because there is a quarterback from a rival or somebody that there is some disdain towards coming to Seattle. But this time, I'm feeling really good about it because last time the Seahawks playing against Russell Wilson, nobody knew what Russell Wilson was going to be yet in Denver. So it was kind of one of those, let's see who won this trade and let's see who's better off. But this time around, a rookie quarterback week one in Seattle, that's pretty tough for Bo Nix. That's tough for the Broncos, especially when you're considering the fact that somebody like Mike McDonald is a defensive guru. That's supposed to be his thing. I think that's the most interesting part here is rookie quarterback week one. I actually think the Broncos are going to be okay this year. I think Bo Nix will be all right. I think they might be better than they were last year, even with Russell Wilson, because I think Sean Payton can kind of mold a quarterback the way he wants rather than having to deal with Russell Wilson, who already decided who he is. But week one against the Seahawks defense and a defensive coach as a rookie in Seattle, I think it's just going to be too tough of a task for Bo Nix. So my first initial thought here, George, is I'm glad we're playing a rookie quarterback week one because I think it's going to be hard for him. And I think it's going to help the Seahawks kind of have a good week one, good impactful game on defense.
Yeah, and I'm all about stats, as you know, and Bo Nix has never won a football game in Seattle.
Yeah, that's true.
So doesn't look good. He's played one. Yeah. He's played one game. Or where was the Pac-12 championship game? Was it in Seattle?
Vegas, I think.
I thought they didn't do it in a neutral field. You might be 0-2. I could be wrong there, by the way.
It really does not matter. It's the NFL versus college football. So
he did beat us. He did beat the Huskies when he was at Auburn.
Yeah. So, it really makes no difference. So
it makes zero difference. But it's definitely, just having a little bit of fun with Bo Nix. Because really, like, this just the whole thing with Bo Nix, let's be honest, we have no idea. Rookie quarterbacks always are a Pandora box. It doesn't matter if their preseason was good, the stories, the expectations. Really, you don't know how a rookie quarterback is going to actually react to the NFL until he plays a NFL game. We saw Bryce Young last year being the number one overall pick. It looked like he shouldn't even be in the league. And then you sometimes have guys like Russell Wilson's a third round pick who comes into the league and looks like a starting quarterback right away. So this is going to be just like opening up a Pandora box with Bo Nix. And Seattle on the road, Seahawks, that's the worst place for a rookie quarterback against a Mike McDonald defense. I don't think there's a better situation for the Seahawks in week one than this. You could probably look through all the NFL teams and find a better situation, but this is one of the best situations to start off the season. A rookie quarterback, unknown, team coming off not the best season. The Broncos were okay last year. Like, just everything for this gives me like the vibes that the Seahawks should start off the season 1-0 if they take care of business.
Yeah, it is a Pandora box for rookies, sure. But at the end of the day, also, like, let's just throw everything out the window for a second when it comes to rookie quarterbacks week one. Because week one, on average, most of the time, they struggle. Rookie quarterbacks, their first game. So regardless of what it's going to be the rest of the season. I feel like rookie quarterbacks are always a Pandora's box, like through a whole season, right? But week
And I don't
one,
even know if Pandora box is the right like analogy, but I just threw that word out. So
yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The point more is for me is that it's hard to know what a rookie is going to be regardless for an entire rookie season as a quarterback. But I think week one, usually, for the most part, historically, they struggle week one. And I think that's where the Seahawks have an advantage this time coming around. And I think at the end of the day, I just think this is you even look at the Vegas odds, right? Like I like to look at betting odds. Seahawks are -6 at home. They have one of the bigger spreads out of any game. I think it might have been the biggest that on week one this time.
No, the Patriots are -8 against the Bengals.
8+8, not minus.
+8 against the Bengals.
Yeah, they are not favored by 8. They're yeah. I think we might be the second. I was just looking at it. So like, let's see, the 6 and 8. Yeah, and then Arizona and Buffalo 6.5. But let's say we're in the top 3 biggest favorites. Buffalo 6.5 against Arizona, Cincinnati -8 against New England, and then the Seahawks -6 against Denver. So even if you're looking at odds makers, looking at Vegas, the Seahawks have one of the biggest favorites going into this week. So I'm feeling pretty confident about this game. At the end of the day, you never know. Also, week one, new head coach. I think that's something that's also interesting here. We have no idea what our culture is. We have no idea what's, how it's going to go with a new head coach week one. But I will say, I think this is an interesting point to talk about maybe like as a Seahawks fan. I feel like it's already clear, and it could be wrong, obviously, but I feel like everyone's pretty much on the same page that like this Mike McDonald thing is going to work. Like
it seems like not just
feels
Seattle
way too. Yeah. Say that again?
It's not just Seattle folks who think that. It seems like a complete agreement across all aspects of NFL media and NFL that Mike McDonald's going to work.
Yeah, and like work long term, which is interesting. I think he's 3rd in Coach of the Year odds.
Yeah, 3rd.
There are a lot of people that put the Seahawks at like 20th in power rankings, but I think aside from record, right? Like sometimes record doesn't exactly equate to how good or bad you were or your power ranking, right? Like at the end of the day, we've talked about it. The Seahawks could end up 8 and 9, but if you won the last 5 and Mike McDonald looks like a dominant coach, you're talking about success.
Right.
And I think you're right here. Top 3 coach of the year odds. I think Peter Schrager on Good Morning Football picked him as the coach of the year and picking the Seahawks to make the playoffs. Now, I think a lot of people underrate the Seahawks right now. They're putting them at 20 to 22 in the power rankings. But aside from that and what the Seahawks record is, to your point, I think everybody, including outside media, inside Seattle media, everything, seems to be on the same page that Mike McDonald's going to work as a head coach.
I agree. And I mean, on my show, like this is breaking news. Like yesterday, I picked the Seahawks to make the playoffs. And I mean, that by itself, Sammy, that's big news.
Big news.
But no,
there's no way to transition these conversations.
No, bro.
Just, I thought we were going to talk about Mike McDonald for a second. You're like, breaking news.
No, but to the point is that means I like Mike McDonald. I love this guy. I think he's a really good culture builder. I think we're a good team. And I think me, I've never, ever been someone who's like a homer and is just going to pick the Seahawks to make the playoffs every single year. I'm always try to be at least somewhat reasonable with my predictions. And I'm not saying I don't think we're better than the 49ers or anything like that and can make the playoffs, like I would win the division year one. But I think Mike McDonald is good enough to where he's not scared to go against the Shanahans, the McVays, Gannon. I think he's a good coach, but I think McDonald, no one's worried about Gannon right now. But the point is, I think we have the right head coach long term, and that's what really matters. And that's why I think they'll make the playoffs. That's why I think they'll win week one. I think this team looks ready. They look prepared. All the noise coming out of camp is good. If you go look back last year at Gannon from the Cardinals, right? I know they ended up having a little bit of a better season than they expected to without Kyler Murray, who only played 8 games. But remember all the quotes coming out and people laughing at the Cardinals head coach, like, oh, this guy's goofy, or this guy has weird quotes, or this guy looks like he's, not up to the task. McDonald has none of that. Like, it's like I said, complete agreement that McDonald is a head coach in the NFL and he's in the right position and he's going to have the team in the right position.
Yeah. And I mean, that's where I feel like we've gotten lucky, is that he's given off this aura of being like the next McVay or Shanahan or Kevin Stefanski. You could see, like, I don't know why, but I can envision Mike McDonald being Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh, like with the same team for 15, 20 years. I don't know what it is. Sometimes you don't see that, right? I have a strong feeling there was a lot of questions when the Seahawks hired somebody like Jim Mora. Right. It wasn't like 100% approval rate. Even the Pete Carroll wasn't 100% approval rate. I feel like whatever it is with this Mike McDonald situation and whatever this aura he's given off and the way training camp was run, like you said, there was no news out of camp like you mentioned with the Cardinals, right? Like Jonathan Gannon's goofy. Look at these weird quotes, or I don't know, like freaking look at all this quarterback controversy that this coach is stirring up, or look at what this coach is saying and doing. And, somebody like Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell's worked out for Detroit, but there were so many like people just like, look at this meathead dude talking about how many shots of espresso shots he takes. Mike McDonald has come across as like straightforward. I'm going to be a good coach. I'm going to be a Harbaugh, a Mike Tomlin, a Shanahan, and this is going to work. And I love that we have this approval rating of him, which also scares me because, like, what if we're all just fucking wrong and he sucks as a head coach? But I don't think it's going to happen.
Like that's one of those things where, like, okay, everyone was wrong. It's not like they went against the we're like, no, everyone's oops, I didn't mean to swear there. Everyone's opinions, and mark that down, 1225. We can edit that part out for some platforms. And anyway, like, it's not like, oh man, I can't believe we hired I don't know, Nick Sirianni. I know he ended up working out, but everyone was like, what? Nick Sirianni? If Mike McDonald doesn't work, you're not going to sit there and be like,
the Nick Sirianni thing, still to this day, even though it worked, there's still the goofy quotes they make fun of him for. There's still, what was it this offseason, that him and Jalen Hurts don't dislike each other, which means they don't. There was that thing about it, like him and Hurts, they don't like each other very much. Like, it's rare to have what we have with Mike McDonald, which I know you were getting to, but I think it's interesting that even some coaches who work out, like Sirianni's worked out, they made it to a Super Bowl. There's still drama coming out of camp this year. Like, him and Jalen Hurts don't dislike each other. It's like, okay, well, it's still not perfect. But with Mike McDonald, we've had 100% like no weird quotes like that.
Nothing. And I love it. I guess the only thing, and it was right at the beginning of when Mike McDonald got hired, everyone was talking about the he took out all the murals from the Super Bowl or whatever it was. He stripped out some pictures, but like, okay, that's the worst thing he's done.
Which he also, like, when you really like deep dive back to it, like him and John Schneider trolled everyone on social media by like standing in front of the Richard Sherman tip mural. Like, they're still in the building. They just moved them not in the main hallway next to his office. So he doesn't so it's not his memories, which is pretty understandable and normal. And I think on like the other front here, it's like the good part about it is we talked about media and we talked about fans' approval ratings. Every player that has talked about Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb. So I'm actually going to add that element to this because it's really important that we got probably one of the hottest offensive coordinator candidates.
That's a great point.
Could have had. Yeah, like Ryan Grubb, if you hear Geno Smith, if you hear Jackson Smith and Jigba, the way they talk about their eyes lighting up when they see the playbook, the people, the defensive players talk about Ryan Grubb's offense is annoying to play against. And then offensive players are saying Mike McDonald's defense is annoying to play against. And Tyler Lockett's talking about how more buttoned up they are this year and how the process has been a little bit better, which is a half shot towards Pete Carroll. Even if it's not intentional, it's like they're saying something's different in the building this year
Mhm.
and the organization. Like that part to me is the really good part here. Is I think it's rare to have fan approval rating, media approval rating, and then on top of that, you have players talking about their offensive coordinators, their defensive coordinators, the organization, like as a whole, the way that the process is working. Even the players are locked in on how good it is and talking about that, which I think is just another big plus that we have going to this year.
Yeah, no, it's all exciting stuff. I'm excited for the first game of the Mike McDonald era. Well said.
Yeah, me
Like
too.
and Grubb too. Like it's gonna be nice to see what kind of offense Grubb brings. I posted on Seattle on tap, and if you go on our tap, I also put like the top 25 most crucial Seattle Seahawks of all time. You can see that on the YouTube channel, or not of all time, of this season. And I had Mike McDonald 1 and Ryan Grubb 3. I think that I know the quarterback position is technically the most important, but I think Grubb can unlock something in Geno Smith that other offensive coordinators might have not been able to unlock. We saw what he did with Michael Penix Jr. We saw what that offense looked like, and we have kind of a weirdly similar offensive like setup as the Huskies. Geno Smith at quarterback. You have a big receiver, Romo Dunze, DK Metcalf. You have McMillan, who is kind of like the Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have the Polk, who's kind of like a Tyler Lockett. Like you have the running back, Kenneth Walker. Like you have like a very similar setup. So I'm actually excited to see what Ryan Grubb does with what I feel like is a very similar setup, offensive like weaponry than he had at UW.
With the exception of the offensive line probably not being as good.
Probably,
But
absolutely.
I think our passing offensive line was number 2 on PFF in all of college football, and for the Huskies last year. So the only, I guess when we talk about what's important this year, and it kind of goes to a part that I was going to bring up, which is like who are players that are going to break out potentially, and who's the most important units here. For me, the most crucial position, not Mike McDonald, not Ryan Grubb, to me it's Geno Smith, but that also kind of goes to how good's this offensive line going to be? Because I think at the end of the day, for me, I think we've seen this pretty clearly with Geno Smith compared to 2022 versus 2023. When he's protected and he has time, he's very accurate, makes the right plays, doesn't make many mistakes. When he's forced to run around in circles, he's not Lamar Jackson, right? He's not Justin Fields. He's Geno Smith. He's not amazing when there's really big pressure. So at the end of the day, for me, some of the biggest keys here for me, the number one key probably outside of Geno Smith is that offensive line.
Right.
Because I think that's what helped propel that Washington Huskies offense. And then the reason the offensive line is so big is because if that line is good, which we've made upgrades, of course, we had great offseason signings, bringing in Connor Williams, a good draft.
Right.
Great. And I hope it all works out because I think we have a really unique situation where we have a running back who's pretty primed for a breakout year. Kenneth Walker, there's a lot of talk about him. Could he crack into being a top 5 to 7 running back in the NFL? If we have a decent offensive line that produces a good run game, all of a sudden I think it's almost guaranteed the rest of the offense, the passing game is going to be good. So if we have a balanced offense, good run game, good offensive line, good pass game, I think Ryan Grubb's going to just thrive. Like I think we're going to be sitting here being like, holy crap, look at this offense. Like,
yeah, hopefully he does. Hopefully he thrives, but not so much that he becomes the hottest candidate as a head coach. Kind of want to keep him for at least a year or two around,
I know he'll probably be. This is probably this is going to be a 1-year experiment. Probably he's going to be a head coach next year
and bring back Shane Waldron.
Oh. Yeah, well, we will not. He'll be fired from the Bears at the end of the season, and I think he'll struggle to find a good role. I think for Ryan Grubb, there's also the potential where you see a lot of coaches, young coaches, being smart and not jumping to jobs. Right? Ben Johnson last year didn't jump to any jobs. If he doesn't feel like it's the right job, then don't jump. Right? So at the end of the day, if this Seahawks team is very successful, you never know with a Ryan Grubb or somebody else that just says, "Hey, let's see if we can win a Super Bowl in a year or two. Like let's stick to this before I go take a leap. So I hope that's what happens if he does become
Same here.
a super good coordinator, which I think he will be.
Yeah.
Honestly, when you
And
watch,
if it reaches other jobs, like that's what happens. I mean, that means we had a really good year. So like, I guess you got to
yeah,
take. I mean, it's a good thing.
that means we probably went like 11-6. So
Yeah.
I would that'd be a good sign. The one thing that with the Ryan Grubb offense, George. Now I know that I think the Washington Huskies lost 49 players. I think it was this
Something like
offseason.
that. Yeah.
But I think just watching week 1 against Weber State, not even like a powerhouse team, watching week 1 of Huskies football, obviously new personnel, but I think I sat there and I was like, yeah, this is not the same. Like there was just last year, there was like an aura to that offense. Like even playing against a Weber State, that Huskies offense was kind of just like a little blah for 3 quarters. And I just like made me reminisce on last year, and it made me
Yeah.
realize like, man, the Seahawks are lucky. They got if we can somewhat replicate that Huskies offense from last year, it's going to be a show in the NFL.
Yeah. And
I'm hoping
I
that's the
really
case.
do believe in Geno. I think he could be elevated into a top 10 quarterback with the right system, right head coach, right weapons. And I think and right offensive coordinator. And I think as the right offensive coordinator, he has the right weapons. He just needs some protection on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's going to be his key. I mean, how I guess this is a important preview for going into the season. How good do you think Geno can be? Like, because like for me, I'll give you my quick answer is
Like
I think
ceiling?
I think his ceiling is like 2022 Geno Smith, which is the 8th to 12th best quarterback in the NFL. I think that's the absolute ceiling.
Yeah. I think the ceiling is the roof.
Nice. Thank you, Michael
But
Jordan.
But no, exactly what you said. Anywhere between the 8th to 12th best quarter. He's not going to be better than Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, right? Like he's not going to be in that tier 1 quarterbacks of the NFL, but can he be a tier 2? I think so.
Yeah.
Can he be
I
Dak
mean,
Prescott? Dak Prescott, despite people hating on Dak, he was second in the NFL in MVP voting last year.
I don't know, but
I think he was second in MVP voting last year. And yeah, can Geno be second in MVP voting? Probably not, but could he finish 5th?
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a couple guys you mentioned that, yeah, he's not going to be better than those guys, but he could be Dak Prescott. He could be Jared Goff. He could be Jordan Love. I mean, his 2022 season was the same as like Jordan Love's 2023
Right.
season. Jordan Love got hot at the end of the year too.
But the reason
Like,
everyone's so excited about Jordan Love is because Jordan Love is so young and is only in his second year starting. If Geno Smith, after that 2022 season, was his first year starting, people would be talking about him as an upcoming star in the NFL rather than a journeyman quarterback.
yeah, the funny thing with Geno is like, he's obviously not young, but I don't know. There's something interesting about the fact that he he's played what, like 3 full seasons?
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 full with the Seahawks. Did he have 2 full seasons or 1 with the Jets? I forget, or like
Let's
one and
see.
a half. But yeah, he's
Okay,
like on.
he had played 16 games and then 14 games 10 years ago, and then
Okay.
17 and 15. The most ever he had other than that was like 5 games in 2018. But like in total, 77 games.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So yeah,
I'm gonna
he's in his
divide
5th
that
year.
by 16. I divided by 16 because most of his career it was 16 games. He'd be like, yeah, that's 4.8 years of total football.
Yeah, and usually a quarterback really gets into that rhythm in his 4.9th year of starting. So this is perfect timing
fifth
for
year, fifth
Geno
year.
Smith. Perfect timing,
Fifth years, he's about to hit his prime, essentially.
essentially.
Honestly, though, his body might be like a 28-year-old instead of a 34-year-old.
Yeah, I mean,
In this
definitely.
league.
He's definitely not taking as many hits as other quarterbacks, and that's great news. It's great news. And we've seen, like, rarely in the NFL do we see someone, kind of bounce around and then have a renaissance later in his career. But, like, maybe Geno Smith's that guy. And, like, this is a huge year for Geno because an average year, we're drafting a quarterback or bringing in a quarterback. A good year,
Yeah.
we might say, hey, all we need to do is add some more pieces and make a run towards the Super Bowl. And plus,
Yeah,
I love those stories like that. Imagine Geno Smith ever won a Super Bowl. Like, that's a great
it'd
story.
be cool. And you have to remember, like, he's not that old. I know it's crazy, but like he's 2 years younger than Russell Wilson. He's like 4 years younger than Kirk Cousins. He's 7 years younger than Aaron Rodgers. Like, he's 33. This was like, he's not 36, 37. Like, he's
Right.
33. He has he has a body probably of a 29-year-old in NFL terms. There is a chance. I mean, 36, 37-year-old Kirk Cousins just got what was it, a 3-year, $100-something million contract.
That's so funny you say that, because imagine that, right? Like, let's say Geno plays good. Now Geno's a good quarterback. He's Kirk Cousins, essentially a good quarterback in the NFL. Could be, I mean, you just said that Kirk at 37 got this huge contract. Kirk's been playing most of his career. Geno could be the starting quarterback for the Seahawks for the next 10 years, in essence. I'm not saying he's going to be, but like,
let's say 7.
So, okay, 7 seasons. That means he was a starting quarterback for the Seahawks. Already been 2. Let's say he's a starting quarterback for the Seahawks for 9 seasons.
Yeah, it'd be as many as Russell Wilson.
Right. Wouldn't that be nuts? Like, just thinking about that, saying that out loud to me is like absurd. But there is a realm of possibility that could actually happen.
Yeah. I mean, if he has his 2022 season, George, do not be shocked if he gets a 2 or 3 year extension. 2022, Geno Smith was 69.8 completion. So 70% completion, 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 picks with 100 quarterback rating. I mean, if he does that again, there's nothing stopping the Seahawks from giving him another one of those 3-year, $100 million contracts.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more.
Especially if they're good. If the team's good, like, why would you? I think the Seahawks are kind of like, what do they call it? What do they say? Stuck between a rock and a hard
Pandora box?
No, Pandora box is a question mark. Rock and a hard place is a confusing place.
Yeah.
They're in a confusing place where even if Geno's like above average slightly, but they go 10-7 or 11-6, and you have a new coaching staff and you have a lot of young guys, you don't just go draft a quarterback and choose a rebuild. You just kind of
because look, the only quarterbacks you want are in the top 10. You're like, I mean, sometimes there are exceptions where you can get a quarterback at 15, 16, 17, 18, but usually the quarterback you're looking for to replace a quarterback is usually in the top 10 because you had a really bad season. And I just don't envision this team having a bad season and being in a position where they can draft a top 10 quarterback.
But that's also sort of, because like
sort of, that's what I mean. It's not 100%.
Quarterback. They literally paid for a quarterback and then drafted someone in the 3rd round, and it worked out. It's rare, but it's a sort of, or like, you never know. They might actually see Sam Howell as like the future. Like, he needs to develop for a year or 2. Let's not forget, people like, oh, Sam Howell, how could he be the future? I don't know. Maybe he is. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 5 years, and now he's pretty good. Like, you never know how things transition. So I guess it's a bunch of wait and see type of situations here. But I do want to get to the game for one more minute.
Oh yeah, there is a game. There is a game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think, I want to talk about what's your confidence meter right now? How are we feeling? We talked about it. They're third highest favorites this week according to Vegas. Are you like, what's your biggest, how confident percentage are you? But like, what are your biggest concerns? How we feel?
I'm a solid 8 out of 10 confidence. I think the Seahawks win the game 27-21. But my only thing that makes me unconfident, just one slight thing, is, like I said earlier in the show, we do not know what Bo Nix is yet in the NFL. If Bo Nix is really damn good, he comes out and this guy is throwing darts and dimes and he looks like a mini Drew Brees in a Sean Payton offense, that would be my concern. That would be the bad case scenario. Well, wow, I guess Bo Nix and the Broncos are good.
Yeah.
That would be my concern. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen, but that's my only concern. I think that's the only way the Seahawks lose the game.
Yeah, well, which would also be the slight on the slight other side would also just be maybe the defense isn't great, which would be a problem also. At the end of the day, I do believe in Mike McDonald. I do believe in what his plan is for this defense. But I will say, the biggest cause for concern outside of offensive line for me is definitely the linebackers group. And
yes, of course.
So you just never know. There's a lot of pieces. I think, Uchenna Nwasu is going to be out for 4 weeks again this year too. I'm just not 100% sure what this defense is going to be. I do believe in Mike McDonald and what his plan is, but I just don't know if the personnel is exactly 100% ready for what they're looking for.
And linebackers are important too for this type of game. For this type of game, right?
For all games. I mean, like, linebackers are important.
But especially like a Sean Payton offense, like it's a lot of dink and dunk, like, and a lot of like stuff down the middle and like screen passes, and right, like you need your linebackers to be making tackles and covering running backs.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't think of that until you said that. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, regardless, you're playing a Sean Payton offense. So yeah, like at the end of the day, your linebackers are your quarterbacks of your defense. So when you go against a complex offense, you're going to need those linebackers, communication wise, setting up the defense, making sure everything works. And that's my biggest concern with this team too. Like, it's who's the quarterback of this defense? The last freaking 10 years, we've had Bobby Wagner with the exception of 1 year. We've had Jordan Brooks. I know a lot of people aren't that high on Jordan Brooks, but we don't know what we have we don't know what we have this year. Unless Mike McDonald is, as we've seen in Baltimore, he's a freaking guru and he just turns players into better than what they
Patrick
are.
Queen,
and then we're like, oh, cool. Our linebackers are good too. Wow, everyone on the defense is good. But I'm also sitting George at like a solid 80%. One of my 5 bets of the weekend is going to be the Seahawks -6.
Okay.
I think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns. I think it's going to be. I actually think it's one of the easier games on their schedule, specifically because Bo Nix is on his first game. Now, if this was middle of the season, I don't know how I would react, but I still think Bo Nix, game 1 of his career in Seattle, the throwbacks, the crowd, the Mike McDonald's first game. I think they're going to throw out some really random, interesting stuff on defense. So I'm going to go with an easy win for the Seahawks. I think I think the Seahawks have a lot of tough games on their schedule, but I think this is probably one of them that I leaned a little bit more towards the really high confidence side.
Okay. I like that.
As long as that defense shows up the way we think it's going to show up. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, same here, man. I guess, like I said, 27-21 Seahawks.
I'll go 27-14, 2-score game.
All right. Love it.
2 funny things to mention here. 1, are you surprised? Jamal Adams ruled out week 1 for the Titans.
I'm not going to comment on that. Like, I don't want to comment on a man's health.
It's pretty ridiculous that he's out again.
Yeah. Don't give me what I deserve.
Yeah, he's always hurt, bro. Russell Wilson's taking it day by day as well. He wants to play Sunday if able. There's a lot of ex-Seahawks that careers are just, I feel like, slowly on the downturn.
I feel so bad for Russ. Oh my God.
I do feel for him.
I feel zero bad for Russ.
Why? Yeah.
Because the guy is a serial liar who is very, very fake.
Serial liar.
Yeah. Oh, I'm all about family.
You could say fake, but liar is kind of
fake means you're lying. If I'm faking something, I'm also lying. So fake, lie, same thing. And he's very Hollywood, and he, in my opinion, he's been much more about Hollywood than football the last 6 years, and that's why he is where he is.
That's fair. We'll see.
He's going to win his 6. How many Super Bowls did he say he wants to win?
I don't know. I don't remember that. I hope he does okay in Pittsburgh personally, but they're not in the NFC. I could care less what happens. But we definitely left him at the right time.
Yeah,
Geno
great.
Smith is a better quarterback.
By the way, amazing how we've been able to move off players at the right time.
Yeah, like that was the right time. Because imagine if we were paying Russell Wilson's contract he got with Denver. Oh my God.
Oof.
We'd be in a different situation right now.
We'd be saying, wow, well, we will.
Yeah, literally. Well, that's all we got for today. You can check us out probably either Sunday night or Monday morning post-game Seahawks, talking about the win, hopefully, week 1, the 1-0 Seahawks. So stay tuned. Follow us everywhere at Seattle on Tap. You can find the podcast. Just type in at Seattle on Tap on Spotify or Apple, on YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening. Find us everywhere. Seattle on Tap and SeattleOnTap.com for merchandise, blogs, whatever you want to see. If you want to read some of our post-game reactions, check out our merchandise, SeattleOnTap.com. So moral of the story, if you want to find us anywhere, the words Seattle on Tap work. I'm Sammy, and with me is my older brother, George. And George, you got anything else?
No, but I do want to tell the fine folks listening, thanks for stopping by.
We'll see you next time.